أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: وأولو الأرحام بعضهم أولى ببعض في كتاب الله إن الله بكل شيء عليم. صلوات عليك. We gather tonight, besides being the Thursday night program, it is also the commemoration of the shahadat of the 11th Imam, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. Looking at the events that we have commemorated during the month of Muharram and Safar, this seems to be the last one in that series. So this majlis also becomes in a way the last majlis as far as the season of Azaa of Sayyid al-Shahadat is concerned. And inshallah I'll be talking about Imam Hasan also. But the theme that I have for tonight, basically keeping in mind the atmosphere of Muharram and Safar and this majlis. When you look at Karbala, Karbala basically is the story of a brother and a sister, where the brother started a process which ended on the day of Ashura, and the sister continued that movement all the way, where she goes all the way to the Darbar of Yazid. When you look at this relationship, we see that this relationship of brother and sister, or brother and brother, or sister and sister, this is a very important element in human life. And that's what I would like to focus in tonight. And that is why I started with this last ayat from Surah Anfal, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the concept of inheritance, where He says, وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ. Those who are related by blood to one another, they have more right on one another compared to others. في كتاب الله, in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. Allah is surely aware of everything. When we look at the family structure, we know that the foundation of family basically are the parents. That's how, the family starts. But after that foundation, the relationship between the child and the parents, which is the root of that structure. When you look at the second most important relationship, that is between the siblings. The brothers and sisters, who come from the same parents. If you look at the concept used in Quran, many places, is the concept of Silat al-Rahm. And we know that Silat al-Rahm means this value and the emphasis that Islam has put into it, that you should maintain the relationship with those who are related to you. So everybody is covered. The extended family is covered by this concept of Silat al-Rahm. But if you really look at the literal meaning of the word Silat al-Rahm, there's two words. Sila means the link, the tie. Raham means the womb. So Silat al-Rahm means the link with the womb. It means those people who are connected to one another because of the same womb of the same mother. And that's where we see that, although the concept of Silat al-Rahm is, very wide, But if you look at the literal meaning, it actually, it seems that the priority is there between the siblings who come from the same mother. And when we look at this, we have to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, in our history of the A'immah, we have many, many examples. But we'll start with the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, interestingly, in the Quran, sometimes He doesn't go into issues which are part of our nature. He says, I created certain things among you as human beings, but I don't have to really say anything about it. For example, the issue that parents should love their children. Quran doesn't talk about it much, because Allah has placed that love in the hearts of the mothers and the fathers towards their children. So He doesn't have to talk about it much. As opposed to the children having that concern for their old parents. There you will see Quran will emphasize and talk more about it. So there are certain things in human beings, that Allah has created, part of our nature, and He doesn't talk about it. Interestingly, when it comes to the relationship between siblings, Allah starts, if you look at the Quran, Allah talks about the brothers, brother and brother. But He begins negatively, because there are problems with brothers. Brother or sister is a different story. We'll come to that later on. If you look at the issue of the Quran, you will see in the very beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted human beings to be familiar with the most destructive character. The feelings and the emotions that we would have. And this is which will really poison the relationship between the siblings. And we see the example right in the beginning of the human history, in form of Habil and Qabil, the sons of Adam. This is the first generation after Adam. And there you had two brothers from the same father and same mother. But what happens? The very first example is a negative example. Probably Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to give us a warning that remember, this is a very important relationship. Both come from the same womb, same father, same mother. But there are certain things which can interfere and poison the relationship. And you have to be aware of it. Look at the ayat which is there, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about it, where He says, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَ آدَمْ بِالْحَقِّ. Narrate to them the story of these two sons of Adam. Is قَرَّبَ قُرْبَانًا. Both of them decided to make a sacrifice, qurbani, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah accepted from Habil and rejected from Qabil. And what happened? Qabil then turns to Habil and he says, لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ. He says to his own brother, I'm surely going to kill you. And Habil responds by saying, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Baba, if Allah didn't accept your qurbani, it's nothing to do with me. Allah has a criteria and He says He accepts qurbani, good deeds, only for those who are muttaqi, righteous, and who have pure intention in what they are doing. And so don't blame me if your qurbani was not accepted. And then Habil goes on to say, لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدَكَ لَيَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطِ يَدَيْ إِلَيْكَ لِأَقْتُلُكَ. If you stretch your hand and extend your hand towards me to kill me, I'm not going to do the same to you. I will still respect this relationship. You want to kill me, but I will not kill you. I will not, retaliate in that manner. إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Because I have this khawf and the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right in the beginning, Allah gives us the message very clearly. That if you have this khashya and khawf of Allah, the fear of Allah with you, that will prevent you from committing sins. إِنِّي أُرِيدُ أَن تَبُوءَ بِإِثْمِي وَإِثْمِكَ فَتَكُونُ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّارِ. If you intend to kill me, then, I will want you to be responsible for every bad thing that I have done. You will take on all my debts and I'll take all whatever good you have done. This will be the deal, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to deal with the zalimeen. فَتَوَطَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ فَقَتَلَ أَخِيهِ. And then the nafs, the desire of Qabil, overcome him. And he killed his brother, فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, and he became among the losers. What was the basis here? The basis was hasad. The basis of this, the poison which ruined this relationship between two full brothers was jealousy. There is a difference between hasad in Islamic akhlaq and a ghibta. Ghibta is okay. You see something good in someone else and you wish that you also have that. Me also. That is okay. You are inspired by others. There is nothing wrong about it. You pray that, oh Allah, you have blessed him, also bless me on this issue. But hasad is where you don't have it and you don't even pray for it, but you say, oh, why him? That's hasad. And that is which is really the fire which burns that person who is hasad himself. Salawat alayhi. And so we see this example of Habil and Qabil, that the poison in that relationship came from this issue of hasad. Ghibta is okay. Competition to some extent is okay. But hasad, and the best cure for this is to realize, there is an ayat of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who do hasad, it's not only actually a violation of their person who is the objective of their hasad. That person is actually challenging the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the jealous person saying? If somebody has been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if he says, why him? It means he is basically challenging Allah's decision. He wants Allah to ask him whether Allah should bless that person or not. And so if you really think about it, hasad is a very serious issue. And if you think from that perspective, inshallah, any mu'min who thinks about it from that perspective, will be able to deal with the bala and this problem of hasad. Salawat alayhi. Another example that we have in the Quran, in the same context again, between the brothers, and it's negative again, is the brothers of Yusuf. In Surah Yusuf, you have the whole story, where the brothers became jealous of the love that the father had towards Yusuf, and they decided to basically eliminate him. And the whole story, and there also the Quran says, قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا. Yaqub told them that no, you are saying that he was killed by a wolf, and you brought this shirt with blood which is not even true blood. That is where Yaqub says, actually your desires overcome you, and you did something very bad. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. As far as I'm concerned, I will have sabr jameel. I will go through this, loss of my son, in a sense. I can't see him, with patience and sabr until Allah comes and helps me. And that is why we see, for example, the last surah of the Quran, which is known as, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, Surah Falaq. It is a ta'weez. It is actually a dua there, where we seek protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from 4 things. And the last one is, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. That, oh Allah, keep us from the shar and the evil of the jealous person, إِذَا حَسَدٍ, when he acts on that jealousy. That becomes more, dangerous, and that's where, we have to constantly seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the hasideen. When we look at the life of our imams, coming to Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam, Allah had blessed the 10th Imam with 5 children. Imam Hasan Askari was the second one. The oldest one was known as Sayyid Muhammad, but he died during the time of his own father. He was a very pious person. And because of his piety and righteousness and taqwa, many people thought that he will be the next Imam. But he died during the time of his own father. And he is also known as what we call Sahib al-Karamat. In a sense, if you go to his shrine, even now, you just say, I would like to go to Sayyid Muhammad. That is how he is known as. And one of the important hajat which is materialized there is when people go and ask for children. Those who do not have any child, that's one of the important shrines where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the wasita and wasila of Sayyid Muhammad, the hajat for a child is fulfilled. And so he was a very righteous and pious person. He died during his own father's time. The second son of the 10th Imam is Imam Hasan al-Askari. Then the third son was Hussein. Fourth was Ja'far. And the fifth was a daughter. And her name was either Aliyah or Aliyah. There are two different writing of it. Now out of these four brothers, the relationship of our 11th Imam with his older brother, Sayyid Muhammad, and Hussein was good. These three were very close to one another. When it comes to the youngest one, Ja'far, there was a problem with him. And same problem of hasad. He actually goes to the extent, after the wafat of the 10th Imam, he actually claims to be the Imam, challenges his older brother, Imam Hasan Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. And he became he once started associating with the Khalifa and the government of the time, saying things about Imam Hasan Askari, his own full brother there, creating problems for him and the Shia community. And basically he was asking the Khalifa that, why don't you declare me as the Imams of the Shias? But even the Khalifa knew that if you really were deserving, you wouldn't have to come to me to appoint you as the Imam of the Shias. That much even the Khulafa knew about the concept of Imamat among the Shias. So he was a problem for his own brother. And we have narrations from our 11th Imam, where he describes his own brother Ja'far. He says, he is like Qabil. To me, he is like Qabil was to Habil. From our own present Imam, we have certain tawqiyat, the writings which came from the present Imam to his wakala, one of the four naibs there, where he describes his uncle Ja'far. He says, he is like brothers of Yusuf. Now, there seems to be a contradiction in the comparison. 11th Imam says he is like Qabil. 12th Imam says he is like the brothers of Yusuf. There is actually no contradiction. It is very possible that after the wafat of the 11th Imam, Ja'far later on in his life might have regretted what he had done and might have repented. And that's where, by the time of the 12th Imam, during the Ghaybat al-Sughra, now Imam is saying that he is like, brothers of Yusuf. He has done all this on the basis of hasad. Salawat. And so, when we talk about this problem between the family relationship, between the siblings, this is a serious issue. Ja'far is son of a ma'soom. But ismat and infallibility is not hereditary. It's not that all children of ma'soom will become ma'soom. No. Ismat is a quality given to those who are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we teach our own children that as far as Islam is concerned, in the Islamic era we have only 14 ma'soomeen. And so you have a son of an imam, but he has this problem. And so we have to think about it. That when we talk about our own, emotions and feelings towards one another, even in family circle, hasad can act as a poison in that blood relationship. And that is something that we have to always work against it. Salawat Pradhan Barar. Coming to the brother-sister relationship, it's interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at that, describes it in Quran more positively. At least this time the ladies will not say Quran is male biased all the time. If you look at the example of Musa and his sister, in Surah Taha, in Surah number 20, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the blessings He gave to Musa, He says, Musa, remember when I inspired to your mother, when your life was in danger, and I told her that put you in a basket in the river, and I'll take care of you, and he will come back to you. Allah assured the Maryam of Musa, and then Allah says, remember, إِذْ تَمْشِي أُخْتُكَ, O Musa, remember that when you were in a way floating in the river with the flow, your sister was, walking, keeping an eye, until she saw that the wife of Pharaoh asked her servants to bring that basket. They saw a newborn child. She liked the child. She adopted the child. And when she looked for, nurse to feed the child, Musa would not drink from anyone. And that's where the sister of Musa says, I know a lady whose milk he will drink. And then she brings her own mother. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala arranged this thing, that his wali is now being protected and raised in the house of his own enemy, but fed still by his own mother. And this is the amazing thing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in His own mysterious ways. And so we have this example of, Musa and his sister, Imam Hasan alayhi salam and Zainab. And similarly, when we look at our 8th Imam, Imam Raza alayhi salam and his sister Ma'suma Qum. And when we come to the 11th Imam, we don't know much about his sister Aliyah or Aliyah. But there is a very interesting example in his life. Very close to his own life was the relationship between his father and his aunt. Our 10th Imam, Imam Ali Niqi alayhi salam, had a sister by the name of Hakima. And she played a very important role in that stage of Shia history, especially during the early stage of Ghaibat. She was very supportive of her own nephew, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam. And not only that, she actually had the honor to be the midwife for Narjis Khatun at the birth of Imam Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif. It was Bibi Hakima who had come to see her nephew on the 15th of Sha'ban, when Imam said, tonight I would like you to stay with us. There is a very important event going to take place. And so you see the closeness there. And not only that, the 10th Imam, and actually he's the one who initiated and expanded the system of Vikalat. Appointing representatives, because the Shias were not free those days to meet the Imams directly. And the 10th Imam, amazingly, appoints his own sister, Bibi Hakima, as one of the wakala, one of the representatives, a point of reference for the masail of the Shias. And the Shias, when they could not, get their answers, one of the places they would go to Bibi Hakima Khatun to get the answers of their issues. And because she is the sister of the 10th Imam, uncle of 11th Imam, so she is like grandmother to the present Imam. Our Imam Zamana would be calling him Jadda, means grandmother, because she is a sister of his grandfather. And because of that relationship, even the Shia started calling her Jadda. So she was actually known as Jadda of the whole Shia community, grandmother of the community, because she is the grandmother of the Imam Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. There are narrations from Sheikh Saduq in his Kamal al-Ni'mah, where he actually describes some of the ashab of those days who used to go to Bibi Hakima. But I must point this out, that they would go there, meet her, but she will be behind the curtain. And so the issue of hijab, the issue of haya is always there. I know people don't like haya, but that is part of our life. That is part of our value and the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt. Ahmad bin Ibrahim actually says, once I had gone to see Bibi Hakima, and I asked her a question about herself. And I said, what is the precedence that your brother appoints you, a lady, as a representative? We haven't seen any example before. And it's interestingly, she says that my brother had done this iqtida'an bil Hussein bin Ali. My brother had done this, appointed me as a representative, following the example of Hussein bin Ali, where he assigned the responsibility to Zainab after the events of Karbala. And she says that there was a time during the early days of the imamat of the fourth Imam, in order to protect his life, sometimes even statements issued by the fourth Imam would not be issued in his name. It would come in the name of Zainab bint Ali. And so she was there in the front. And so Bibi Hakima says that, my brother has made me a wakil, following that example of Hussein bin Ali, when he appointed Zainab to take over until Imam is able to function freely. Salawat. And so we see this example even during our own time, just to make it more relevant to our own time. I get all these questions many times, do we have an example during our own time between a brother and sister who followed this path of Ahlul Bayt? Yes, we have. If you look at the present history of Najaf, and I'm sure all of you know the name of the great scholar, Shaheed Sayyid Baqir al-Sadr. He was a very prominent student of Ayatollah Khoui, and there was great hope that after Ayatollah Khoui he would become the marja, because he was in a way very unique in his approach to issues, and very, his scope of expertise was very vast. He was killed by Saddam when he was only 50 years old, 49 or 50 years old. But already he had written books besides the fiqh issues. He had his book on falsafatuna, dealing with Islamic philosophy. Then another book, Iqtisaduna, where he compares communism and capitalism with the Islamic system of economics. And there was another book he was going to come up, but he wasn't able to finish. Mujtama'una, dealing with the society and the political system of Islam. And he, during the days, just soon after the revolution in Iran, because of his support of Imam Khomeini and the revolution of Islamic revolution of Iran, Saddam basically targeted him. He was arrested. He was very active, of course, even on the political arena in Iraq during the days of Saddam. And he was not alone. He had a sister by the name of Bintul Huda, who was very active with the brother, taking care of the movements and the education process of the women in the community. And both of them were arrested together. And they were not only killed, they were actually tortured brutally, to the extent of, their nails being pulled out, physically the way they were tortured, even boiling oil was put on them. And both of them basically were killed in prison of Saddam, and they became shaheed. And so we see that when it comes to the history of Shiaism, alhamdulillah, although we might not know many examples, but this is a tradition which is coming on, continuing. And this is where we have to realize the sacrifice, that our madhab and deen has not come to us that easily. It is the legacy of the blood of the shahadat across the centuries who have given their lives so that this mazhab may come to us and be maintained for the future generations. Salawat. Bibi Hakimas refers to Imam Hasan alayhi salam as an example, that my brother appointed me as a wakil, just following the example of Hussein bin Ali. But let me just share with you something was written by a scholar in the past, Sheikh Ja'far al-Shushtari. But he says something very amazingly about, difference in the struggle between Hussein and Zainab. And he says Hussein had to only fight in one battlefield, and that was Karbala. But Zainab, who continued that struggle, had to fight in two battlefields. One was the Darbar of Ibn Ziyad in Kufa, and the other was the Darbar of Yazid bin Muawiyah in Damascus. And realizing that Hussein was a man, it had been a tradition of the descendants of Abu Talib to sacrifice their lives. But when it came to women, this was the first time that the women of Ahlul Bayt were put in that situation. And so this is where we see the greatness of Zainab bint Ali, and the contribution to the survival of the Shia mazhab. And they, Hussein and Zainab, basically are for us the best of example, who were willing to sacrifice for one another in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so keep that example in mind. We have Hussein and Abbas as brothers and we have Hussein and Zainab as brother and sister. Then you have Imam Ali Naqi and Hakima Khatun. These are the examples that we have to keep in mind in order to strengthen our own relationships within our own family. Salawat. Imam Hasan Askari alayhi salam को मोतमिद बिल्लाह के ज़माने में सामर्रा में जहर दिया गया था, और वजह वही थी कि दुश्मन जो है अहले बैत से, हमारे आइम्मा से हुकूमत छीन ली, उसने दौलत छीन ली। सातवें इमाम के ज़माने में आले अली के ख़वातीन की हालत मदीना में ऐसी थी, माली एतबार से जो इनको ऑप्रेस किया गया था, कि घर में सिर्फ एक लिबास होता था ख़वातीन के लिए जो सही और सालिम था तहारत के उन्वान से, और एक खातून वो पहनती थी, नमाज पढ़ती थी, फिर दूसरी खातून को देती थी, वो पहनती थी, फिर वो अपनी नमाज अदा करती थी। तो हुकूमत इन्होंने लूट ली, दौलत इन्होंने लूट ली, कौम से दूर रखा, इन पर जासूस मुअय्यन किए, लेकिन जिस बात को ये इनसे छीन न सके वो इनका अखलाक था और इनका इल्म था। इसलिए कि इल्म और अखलाक वो चीजें हैं जो दुश्मन आपसे छीन नहीं सकता है, और इसी दो उन्सर को देखते हुए दुश्मन हमेशा हार मानता था। सब कुछ करने के बावजूद भी अगर लोगों को आजादी मिलती थी तो उनका दिल जो है माइल होता था अहले बैत की तरफ, और इसीलिए ये आखिर में हार मानने के बाद यही तदबीर अपनाते थे। वाक़यात करबला के बाद अहले बैत पर तलवार फिर नहीं चली है किसी इमाम पर, لیکن زہر کے ذریعے ائمہ کو ختم کیا گیا ہے۔ شیخ مفید بھی جناب امام حسن عسکری السلام کے سلسلے میں یہی لکھتے ہیں کہ معتمد باللہ کے حکم سے امام کو زہر دیا گیا اسی شہر سامرہ میں جہاں ان کے والد کو بلایا گیا تھا۔ امام علی نقی علیہ السلام نے خود اپنا گھر خریدا تھا اور ان کی شہادت کے بعد ان کو گھر کے اندر ہی دفن کیا گیا تھا۔ امام حسن عسکری علیہ السلام کی بھی جب وفات واقع ہوتی ہے اس زہر کے بعد، تو امام کا جنازہ باطنی طور پہ کچھ اور تھا لیکن ظاہری کے طور پہ کچھ اور تھا۔ معتمد نے امام جب بیمار ہوئے ہیں کئی دن تک زہر کھانے کے بعد 5 طبیب اور قاضیوں کو بھیجا تھا کہ ان کے ساتھ 24 گھنٹہ رہیں تاکہ پبلک وہ اعلان کر سکے کہ ہم نے سب کچھ کیا امام کو بچانے کے لیے اور تاکہ زہر کا الزام اس پر نہ آئے۔ لیکن امام کی وفات واقع ہوتی ہے، گھر میں نماز پڑھائی ہے، جعفر پہلے کھڑے ہوتے ہیں لیکن آخر میں خادم آیا اور صاحب العصر کمسری کے باوجود آتے ہیں، چچا کو ہٹاتے ہیں اور اپنے بابا کے جنازے پر گھر کے اندر خود صاحب العصر نے نماز پڑھائی۔ بعد میں یہ جنازہ جو ہے گھر سے اٹھایا گیا، شہر کے جو مرکزی میدان تھا وہاں لے جاتے ہیں، تمام بازاروں کو بند کر دیا گیا تھا، دکانوں کو بند کر دیا گیا تھا، بہت بڑی تعداد میں سامرہ کے لوگ امام کے جنازے میں شریک ہوئے ہیں۔ خلیفہ کے چچا نے نماز پڑھائی ہے اور اس کے بعد جو ہے امام کے جنازے کو وہیں رکھا گیا اور حکم یہ ہوا کہ کفن کو اس طرح سے کھولا جائے کہ چہرہ دیکھ سکیں، اور عمرا اور افسران اور سب کو بلایا گیا کہ وہ دیکھو ہم لوگوں نے کچھ نہیں کیا ہے اور ان کی موت جو ہے نیچرل ہوئی ہے۔ اور اس کے بعد دوبارہ کفن کو بند کیا گیا اور اہتمام اور عزت کے ساتھ یہ جنازہ اٹھتا ہے، دوبارہ گھر میں لایا جاتا ہے اور امام اپنے بابا کے پہلو میں امام حسن عسکری علیہ السلام کو دفن کیا گیا۔ گفتگو چونکہ ہماری بھائی بہنوں کی تھی، آج ہم کچھ بہنوں سے مخاطب ہونا چاہیں گے۔ امام حسن عسکری علیہ السلام کی بہن جناب عالیہ، امام علی نقی علیہ السلام کی بہن بھی جو اس وقت موجود تھی اس واقعے میں، جناب حکیمہ خاتون، اور اسی طرح سے امام رضا علیہ السلام کی بہن جناب معصومہ، ان تینوں خواتین سے کہیں گے کہ آج ہم جمع ہوئے ہیں 11ویں امام کی شہادت کا پرسہ دینے کے لیے۔ آپ تینوں کے بھائی شہید ہوئے لیکن سب کا جنازہ عزت کے ساتھ اٹھایا گیا، احترام کے ساتھ اٹھایا گیا، لوگوں نے آ کے ظاہری طور پہ ہی صحیح دفن کیا ہے، لیکن مجھے وہ بہن یاد آتی ہے جس کا نام زینب بنت علی ہے کہ زمین کربلا میں وہاں حسین کے بالین پہ کوئی نہیں پہنچ سکا۔ سید سجاد بیماری کے بستر پر خیمے میں موجود تھے، ہاں جناب زینب خیمے کے باہر نکلتی ہیں، بھائی کی تلاش میں، دیکھتی ہیں بھائی نظر نہیں آتے ہیں، آخر میں وہ بلندی جسے تلے زینبیہ کہا جاتا ہے وہاں پہنچتی ہیں۔ وہاں پہنچنے کے بعد زینب نے نشیب میں وہ منظر دیکھا ہے، خداوندہ کسی بہن کو وہ منظر نہ دکھانا۔ اپنے بھائی کو دیکھتی ہیں زمین کربلا پر پڑے ہوئے ہیں اور شمر ملعون کا منحوس زانو حسین کے مقدس سینے پر ہے، اور وہاں دیکھتی ہی اس جناب زینب عمر بن سعد سے کہتی ہے، اے عمر بن سعد تو دیکھتا رہے گا اور میرا بھائی قتل ہو جائے گا۔ اتنے میں ایک نیزہ بلند ہوا، زینب نے دیکھا بھائی کا سر نو کے نیزہ پر تھا، ہاتھوں کو بلند کرتی ہے، اللہم تقبل من ھذا القربان، خداوندہ میری قربانی کو اسلام کے خاطر قبول فرما۔ ماتم حسین۔